Hello and welcome to our first screencast for this year. My name is Mr. Knox. We have Mrs. Alleman here and Mrs. Kim to my left. And today we are going to be talking about Chapter 1, Section 3, Scientific Inquiry. And as always, as you watch this video, you should have already read in the book, pages 18 through 22. And you guys should also be following along in your book. So on page 18, here we go. The key idea for this section is scientific inquiry, and it's basically how scientists investigate the world. Okay, what do they do to answer all these questions that people have? That is scientific inquiry. Inquiry deals with questions. So, they do it through a scientific process. And that's what we're going to be discussing today, the scientific process. There are certain steps that scientists take. The first step is you have a question. So you might have a question. You and your brother are fast, and you just got some new shoes, and your brother doesn't have shoes yet, not new shoes, so he likes barefoot. Like, I wonder if I'm going to run faster with shoes or without shoes. I don't know. So that's a question. So after you develop your question, it's what you want to know. You want to know if you can run faster with shoes or without. I don't know. You develop a hypothesis, and a hypothesis is what you think the answer would be. Well, you bought these new shoes. They look fast. They're light. They're comfortable. My hypothesis is I'm going to run faster with shoes. So now that you asked a question, you thought of a possible answer, you will need to test it. With that, Mrs. Alleman.
Hello. All right. So, in order to test your hypothesis, we want to figure out the answer to our question. We need to design an experiment. When we design an experiment, we're basically going to say, how are we going to figure out the answer to our question? How will we test if we run faster with shoes on or without? So we're going to figure out, okay, let's think, what can we do? Well, I'll run with shoes and I'll time myself. And I'll run without shoes, and I'll time myself. So that's how we're going to test it. We're only going to change one thing at a time. So we're going to wear one kind of shoe, and then we're not going to wear any shoes. We're not going to test a bunch of different kind of shoes, which Nike is the fastest. We're only going to test one thing at a time in order to figure out a scientific answer. A variable, this is what we're changing. So in this experiment, we're going to change whether we have shoes on our feet or not. And remember, we're only changing one thing at a time. The control, in an experiment, we always have to have a control. This lets us compare to be able to see if there is a difference. If I just go and run with my shoes on and I time myself, I don't know if I'm faster unless I run without shoes as well. So we have to be able to compare it to something. So we run without shoes and with shoes. When we're doing our experiment, there's two different kind of variables that we do. The first one is the manipulated variable. It's also called the independent variable. And what this is basically what we are changing in the experiment. So we can think about the manipulated variable, like the man or the woman, whoever's doing the experiment, is going to change something. We're going to change whether or not we have on our shoes. Okay, so our manipulated variable is going to be shoes. That's what I'm changing about my experiment. I'm going to wear shoes and I'm not going to wear shoes. So here we have shoes. The responding or the dependent variable, this is going to be what happens. What's going to change in my experiment because I have shoes? Remember, we're thinking about fastness. Who's going to be faster, with shoes or without shoes? So our times might be different. So when we look at the responding variable, we're going to look at time. My marker is not working perfectly. That's okay. So time is going to be our responding variable. I didn't change the time. I just changed, oops, this goes here, okay, whether or not I had shoes on, and based on that, we're going to see something else that changes in our experiment, our time. So we'll do more practice on this one in class. Sometimes this can be confusing, but just remember, the manipulated is the man or the woman, whoever's doing the experiment, what they're changing. Next we have up Mrs. Kim.
We always have somebody interrupting during our videos. Okay, so if you're a good scientist, you're going to do your experiment many times. You're not just going to do it once or twice. You're going to do it many, many times. And while you're doing your experiment, you're going to collect data or write notes or facts, information. So if you ran 10 times with shoes, 10 times without, you're going to be writing down all the times because you don't want to forget everything. So now when you're done with your experiment, you're going to collect all your data, all the information, and you're going to organize it in a way that makes it easier to understand. For example, you might want to turn it into graphs or charts, and you might see a certain trend. Then you're going to say, hey, does the graph or the chart support my hypothesis, what I thought was going to happen, or does it not? And you're going to make a final conclusion. You're going to decide if you were right or wrong. And then the next thing you would do, the last step of the scientific inquiry, is you want to communicate your results with other people. You don't want to keep it a secret. You want to share so that they can also, you know, find out information about your topic. Thank you.
Okay.